I realized the kind of jobs where people don't want me to wear a cap because of presentation or whatnot, I don't want to be there. And people kind of perceive me a certain way, especially being a black man in academia. You know, if it does come up, if it becomes a problem with me and my cap, the problem goes deeper than that. The cap becomes a symbol.
Welcome to another episode of Apples and Snakes podcast. My name is Yomi Shode. I'm still here. That must mean they like me in doing this gig and facilitating all of this conversation, which is really good. And of course, I am joined by another fantastic guest today. Now, listen, there's only one Don that I know. If you see the colourful hat, if you see the hat, you know the signature. If it's a hot season, if you see the shorts, and it's the colours of wearing and flaring, you know who we're dealing with. I know this poet, if I see this poet like 3 bus stops down the road or something along those lines, the energy's there. Oh, and the backpack. Can't forget the backpack if we're working with the backpack. And this is just appearance and we haven't even got to the poems themselves. It's an absolute pleasure to be speaking with Keith Jarrett this afternoon. Hold tight, right. Keith. How you doing, sir?
A pleasure. It's great to be here. But it's funny, that description, because I was at a festival like probably 6 months ago or something like that.
Yeah. Way
out in the gods. I walked in late, kind of trying to be a bit, demure, as they say, right? From the stage, because is that Keith? I recognise that.
I'd even mention the hoodie, because it's the hoodie as well that comes in there. Has that been like, when we're talking about the idea of like characterization and identity, those things that I mentioned as notable and iconic to you as they are, has it always been a thing for you in terms of just like the hat? If it's hot, I got the shorts.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Has it always been a conscious thing for you just to, or have you just kind of like just done it because it's just you type thing?
It's evolved. Like, so the hat, as a teenager, and this is the first time I'm telling people this.
This is God exclusive. I'm excited about this already. This is it.
So basically, I didn't get pocket money and things. So then, as a way of saving, I started cutting my own hair and not doing it so great. So outside of school, the minute I left school, the cap would go on.
Wow.
But then I just got used to it, and then it became practical. I was like living in the Dominican Republic, it was a practical thing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when my hair started, and I do have a poem about that, when my hair started to go when I was like 24, which felt early.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, if I'm not shaving my head regularly, then the cap will go on, because it's just... And so now it's comfortable. But then what happened, I started using it as a barometer for places that where I wanted to be. Because I'd go into certain pubs or clubs to meet friends, and then if there's a bouncer at the door saying, take off your cap, I'm like, that's why? And it's like, oh yeah, because there's, we want to be able to see your face in case something pops off. And just do things pop off here? Is this where I want to be?
This is where I want to be.
And then the same happened with employment, and I realized the kind of jobs where people don't want me to wear a cap because of presentation or whatnot, I don't want to be there.
I've never considered that.
Yeah, and people kind of perceive me a certain way, especially being a black man in academia, all of that. I know that already I stick out like a sore thumb in some places. So I'm like, I'm going to be comfortable. And also, your perceptions of me are going to be nothing to do with that. But if they do, if it does come up, if it becomes a problem with me and my cap, the problem goes deeper than that. The cap becomes a symbol.
So you just threw this out into the ocean. So the idea of this being like a political choice for you is actually like the politic in it is. I just never considered that at all.
But it's also just a cap.
I know. This is the thing. But it's almost like, and I guess we'll touch that later. We'll touch on that later. Is the idea that listen, I just want to wear this I just want to wear this because I just want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, how as to the stereotypes of a black man already, this on top of that becomes something else entirely. This is dope. How present are you right now? Like how I know we spoke briefly about the weather, and how tiring the mornings can get to just get out of bed. And then there's the slog of just easing into the day, and then there's the day. So in saying that, how present are you like right now?
Thanks for that question. Get in there. So what I tend to do in the mornings as well is take, if I can, is to take a long walk so I can come into my body a bit more. Because I'm very much into that, like feeling part of my body. And I think when you spend a lot of time writing or doing any kind of work that isn't manual, you can kind of forget that you have a body. And so... I haven't done that long walk, but I did have some caffeine. And I did have an egg sandwich, which was nice. And then the guy serving the sandwich started talking about politics and Russia and stuff. So
that was intense with the egg sandwich. I say this with every kindness still running through my body, that I don't think there's never been a point that I've met you or just been at the sidelines in seeing you meet people or people greeting you that you've never been without a smile. You've always carried your smile and such beautiful, warm energy and nature with you through that. And I think things grew closer around the spoken word educators kind of time. I would love to touch on that a bit. And you're not a newcomer in this game at all, in this scene, whether we're talking the performance poetry side, whether we're talking on a more kind of like page poetry kind of side, and the working of the in-betweens. I want to go back a bit. I want to go back to a point, if you remember the first story that you wrote. And I want to know whether you was really excited about that situation.
The first story I wrote?
Yeah, the first story, or the first story or first book that you remember reading.
Oh. So I read quite early. So I grew up in a very literate household. Very religious household. So we, so like from day one, like as soon as I could speak, I had to like start reciting Bible verses. But that also was blending with like poetry and I'm the youngest. So like I just inherited a bunch of like my older siblings' books. The first story I remember writing is extremely silly. So I'll go with that. I had a friend at school, so I can't have been older than about 8 or 9, called Antoine. And then I think people were like just teasing him with his name or something, now calling him Ant. And I said, I'm going to write a story called Antland, all about like this land of ants. And I remember starting to write it in my school book. And I do remember my teacher at the time encouraging me, saying, this is really good. Do you want to read it out to some of the nursery kids? And now actually that makes me emotional, thinking about all the times I've had adults around me validating some of my silliness or just some of my wistfulness, just writing for the sake of it, for the pleasure, and them saying, actually, no, take it seriously. Like, why don't you do this? Like, this could be great. Why don't you finish this? Even when I didn't, like, I remember I didn't really finish Antland. I just, like, wrote it. It was a concept. And I was a kid. But, like, all throughout being a child and a young person, I had people around me who were like, wow, this could be interesting, go for it. And maybe in lots of other ways I was told subtly and unsubtly no about lots of different things. When it came to writing and expressing myself through words, there were some key people who were like, yeah, just do it.
And was it something that you... Because it's one thing for folks, because you're very much in that position now where you kind of, where people, students, they look up to you in a sense of just like hearing what your viewpoint is in relation to either poetry or the work that they present to you type thing. Did you, and it's more around confidence in that writing, was it something that you felt, if you didn't necessarily hear those folks say that to you, if we're talking about Antland, which I still think you can return to now, like if it like a children's book or something like that, which sounds really awesome. At that early stage, do you recall a type of confidence that you kind of drew from yourself to be like, I can write that, I'm gonna do that. Like this is what I want to kind of explore.
Yeah, I think that confidence can come through just an absence of opposition.
Yeah.
And because I read a lot, I was around words a lot. I was around, and again, my family, Caribbean, Jamaican heritage, proudly so. And there's a way in which, particularly Jamaicans, but like people from all over the Caribbean, use language and value the subversion of language. And you can play around with words. And I think that love of it, some of it came from inside, but a lot of it just came from just that I don't know, that ease, that ease. And so what I do, I'm not around schools as much. A lot of my teaching is at university level.
Yeah.
So people have already gone through.
They've gone through the process of things. Yeah.
And but even still, I feel you've just reminded me actually that there is something about giving people permission and saying you can do this, you can experiment, you can be silly. And what I'm a bit worried about is that there isn't enough silliness in the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes to schools and young people, I do, like, whenever I'm in a school, like a secondary school, even especially with teenagers, just giving them permission to say, do you know what, just fling some words down, see what happens. There's something so cool and powerful about that. Yeah.
And in the spirit of that energy and just fling a something on the page and see what happens, you brought a poem to share and to read. And we're going to geek out about it.
Yeah.
So would you mind telling us your poem and reading the poem to us, and then we can talk on it?
Yeah. So it's called El Pueblo, 20 Years Later. And just before the cameras went on, we were talking about getting older, and just reflecting on things. And so I lived in the Dominican Republic, and I realized that it was approaching 20 years ago. So in a different space, and I haven't really been back properly since. I've been back a couple of times, but not, I wasn't living there. And the way that you kind of see a place that was once special to you, was once your life, and that place has continued without you. And then so your memory of it is 20 years old. The slang, the way that I speak now is
changed.
influenced by
Yeah.
the political slogans and all of the things that were going on during the election 20 years ago,
Yeah.
right? And actually, I started writing it in a workshop that Caroline Bird gave. So like there's a bit of... there's loads that we can geek out about.
Yeah.
Should I?
Yeah,
do the
100%.
poem?
Yeah,
Right.
100%.
And hopefully I'll remember it. El Pueblo, 20 years later. Nothing's changed since la última vez when you left. The children are still waving at the spot once occupied by the fast fading spine of the car, blurred eyes abound. In this town, Daddy Yankee is still pouring gasolina into speakers and crowds of underfed dogs rolling sad eyes at the side of forgotten dirt roads. Everything's revved up. The children who once waved at the back of your Jeepetta have all been replaced by children of their own. All parents have fled to Nueva York, New York, Dominican York with Star Spanglish banner. 24 bullet holes now crown the spot by the bushes, by the motoconchos where you last pissed. Mentira. 24 bullet holes now crown the heads of the boys that you last kissed. Mentira. No boys kiss in this town. Mentira. All gay bars have foundations here. You can't move for queer. You can't move for women sitting out in big rollers, pouring libations out to spirits with accents located at the final vowel. It's a fact now that all women have washed their hair, straightened their hair of its African kinks and gods and word stresses. They dress themselves in prayers to save their wayward men. No one prays in this town. No one stays in this town. All cities lead here like the stream, like a Rio Prieto. All the campo, all the poor. Give me them all, these broken brown biscuits. It's all in me, that kind of thing. They run here like La Ciguapa with her feet facing backwards. Run here like tell Alba to tell Yuri to come get the washing because I lose y hay agua and we don't know when it will go. If you stick your left hand out for long enough at the side of any road, a guagua will come bring you. If you turn 7 times on the same spot on a half moon, why would you do that? Why would you turn back? Why would you not run from the concrete hardening around you? Yeah.
I get like such a feeling of how much you probably miss there.
Yeah.
And if there was, and I don't even know, it was such a beautiful reading just now, but the way you performed that, I don't know. Okay, before I even get into the poem, is there an intention, like what you're thinking about is, it almost feels frustration in just you just wanting to be there, of what that used to be, or what was what you remember. But is there like an intentional thing of like that kind of urgency and you sensing that out for us to kind of feel? Talk to me.
Yeah.
Is there something
It's
there?
a reckoning with time, right? Reckoning with memory, reckoning with getting older and having been an adult for long enough to like remember there and that be long ago, and thinking about, oh my gosh, the kids who were waving at me saying, bye-bye, they've probably got kids of their own now. And they're probably not there in that small town where I was. And a lot of them will be in New York or wherever, you know. And yeah, so part of it is more generally kind of like reckoning with like the passing of time, and then missing a place, but not missing the specifics of, you know, this place as it is now, but kind of as it was then, which it can never be because time has passed, right?
Time goes.
And yeah, so there's a lot in that about longing and not being able to get back your youth.
There's when I perform poems, there are key parts that I just do like runs in, like that gets super exciting, and I just kind of charge with energy. And there are points in which I slow down. I noticed in your sharing just now, you're cutting yourself off.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? I'm like, it almost kind of jars and it just takes us off. And in your head, you know that part's coming. Yeah. And then I don't know if that is if you emphasize that a lot whenever it gets there.
Yeah.
Before we even get to the crux of the poem, what points in the poem you know is coming that you get excited by or you get emotional by? Are there any key parts that you're just like, okay, we're about to be here. I need to drum this in you for you to understand. I need to kind of lower my tone here for you to really take in the sense of belonging and how I missed this. Or what, do you know what I mean? What points in this poem that hit strikes you the most?
There's a few moments. There's the mentira sequence, which just means lies. Mentira. But the way Dominicans say it is like mentira. It's like it comes with attitude, and it's like it's correcting myself, but it's also like it's also that playfulness, right? And then the cutting off bit. Towards the end as well, but I do cut myself off several times in that poem, and that kind of reflects how I write now, but how I think now. I often start a lot of sentences that don't go anywhere, or that I'd like it's because I've got competing thoughts, and so the whole point of this poem is that there are competing ideas and concepts and possibilities that are cut off. And so I enjoy that, and I've got a few poems that do that a bit more. And I think the way that I'm the youngest child, so I very often as a kid didn't get to the end of a sentence.
What way?
I like bringing that to the page.
I love that though. I love, because you're not saying that.
Yeah.
For us to understand that you're the youngest child and you're always like, always getting cut off when you're trying to get your way or kind of saying something. But how do you bring that kind of lived experience onto the page for people to understand? Because for me, I might just see it as, oh, that's a really clever thing you're doing there to cut yourself off. And you're like, no. This is deeply rooted, rude boy. This is a different, there's context to that cut off. And I love that we're doing this crunching. I do that. This is the segment, the crunch. The crunch. That we're crunching the poem. Because that's the part that people don't understand is like the deeper thought or the deeper thinking of the poet as to how something that you've grown with is you're finding ways to bring that to the page or to the poem or in performance as well, type thing. What are the key things that you would want people to understand with this poem?
Oh, so much. I think unreliability.
In what sense?
The poem itself is unreliable.
Okay.
There's a lot where I contradict myself, and that did come from the exercise that Caroline Bird gave us.
Would you mind giving an example?
And this was so. I think the prompt was like you're creating a town or a place that you're connected to, and you've got your memory, but every time you sort of go into a solid fact about this place, you're going to undercut it. So that's where I have these all the women are sitting out, they're straightening their hair and they're removing its African kinks and gods and word stresses, and they dress themselves in prayers to save their wayward men. And then I go, no one plays in this town. And then I'm like, no one stays in this town. And then all cities lead here, like this endless stream. So there's the whole poem is unreliable and it's unsteady as our memories are.
Yeah.
But I also wanted it to be a bit cheeky and mischievous. And I hope that there's mischief in that, and that comes through as well. Whether it's like, you know, mentioning Daddy Yankee and Gasolina, which is a banger.
When I was out on them streets, that tune, boy, you can't, you know, when you can't escape a song, and you're just finding yourself randomly just be like, Gasolina. I'm just like, where did that? I'm just here. This is just infiltrated my mind. I can't escape it. But yeah, sorry.
But I heard that song like almost every day for a year. You know, like
that is, oh my God.
Imagine it playing everywhere, right? And the classics. And so yeah, from there to then something more serious. And then there's this idea. So there was the bit also that I hope sticks out is, you know, 24 bullet holes. And I fluffed the line there because I couldn't quite remember it. It's like, it's 24 bullet holes kind of mark the spot by the bushes, by the motoconchos where you last pissed. Mentira. And there's that you know, the first lie. And then there's 24 bullet holes now crown the heads of the boys you last kissed. Mentira. No boys kissing this town. And like, there's a lot about also queerness being repressed. But underneath it, there's the same undercutting, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that comes out strongly. I wanted some of it to be hinted. The bullet holes, there's a bigger story, which I didn't feel needed much exploration, but I wanted that threat to be there.
Yeah.
There was a lot that was quite deep that. Yeah.
And just before moving on, I just wanted to open the window of vulnerability a bit. And as you were writing this poem, and even in the performance of it, what did that look like in terms of just how vulnerable? Because it's one thing to touch on the landscape of the area. It's another thing to put yourself in that area, to kind of be talking about things that are kind of close to the bone.
Yeah.
You give only so much.
Yeah.
But you still give. Do you see what I mean? So what was that what was that like to kind of work between those confines?
It's tricky because stakes are always, I'm sure, like I used to have a blog somewhere, I mean it's still out there somewhere, where I've talked precisely about that, about stakes. And if I'm like holding back too much, then why am I writing? So I need to kind of feel that there are high emotional stakes, that I'm exploring something that is close to the bone, that does matter, that maybe hurts. But that doesn't mean like splurging, like this isn't my memoir, this is a speaker navigating, what it is to remember a place, what it is to remember the threat of violence, what it is to also remember what it is to be closeted, and without giving that all away, like holding stuff of me, but then letting the poem like really go there a bit. I'm hoping it does. I'm hoping it suggests and gives and explores. At the same time, it doesn't need to be like my memoir of like pain.
And this is the thing.
Yeah.
Why would you hope? And rather you be like, I know it's doing that.
Because all writing is hope. All writing is hope. When I write something, I know exactly every precise thing that it's alluding to, what it's doing, where the words are coming from. I really love working, playing with language, playing with puns. And a lot of words for me, like individual words, are connected to my individual memory. So when I put it on a page, I'm feeling a lot of things that are personal to me that may or may not be conveyed to whoever's listening to it or reading it. And so I'm kind of just, what I'm doing in a poem is being precise and exact with my intention. And then, how well that intention is executed partly depends on, the words that I've chosen, but also on the reader, the listener, what they decide to take from it or what they pick up on. So yeah, like someone might not pick up on gasolina, someone might not pick up on, so the bit I mentioned, the women straightening their hair, this African kings and gods and word stresses. For me, like that's really talking about, that tension in a lot of Caribbean culture, which you don't talk about enough, of people not acknowledging their Africanness and African heritage and all of that. But then like going from, spirits with accents at the final vowel and thinking about the particular influence of Yoruba culture on the Caribbean, particularly the Spanish and, speak Spanish Caribbean in particular. Like not a lot of people will get that. And that doesn't matter necessarily. I think, I could go off. I guess we can, but yeah. Like I don't think it matters that people will get everything that I'm alluding, because I'm really intentional and specific. Like almost every word in that is charged with some kind of meaning. Which is overwhelming enough for me. So to then get to expect of someone to like get everything. So that's where the hope is. Like I hope that out of all of the things that are there, that at least a feeling comes through, even if the sort of the ideas and the facts behind all of those feelings aren't gonna immediately come through to everyone, because then they'd be like having to go deep, going a real deep dive.
And I love that you've had this opportunity to talk on this.
Me too, yeah.
Because there might be some things that you're like, oh, I didn't even realize this, that you just kind of like, to just get off and just be like, So in rounding up the crunch of this amazing poem of yours, are there any last bits that you just want people to consider or to know about it?
I need a moment. I kind of almost
that's fine. This is absolutely. I
think,
And I love this moment for you, by the way, because the way you're just looking at it is like it's a proper moment, which is I appreciate it.
I think, and I forgot, I loved doing the It's All in Me, what I'd love to do is just blend all of these different musical references and pop references and everything, but then the nub of it, underneath it, is probably we don't know when it will go, that line. So I've got this line, run night, tell Yuri to tell Alba to come get the washing because I lose y hay agua and we don't know when it will go. And there was a thing, there were a lot of power cuts at the time that I was there. And so if there was luz, if there was electricity, y agua and water at the same time, it was like, run, come, get your washing, put the washing machine on because you don't know when it will go. And that part of me isn't just about having, running water and electricity. It's about your memory.
Yeah.
And it's about that feeling in that moment. We don't know when it will go. And then it leads straight into the, if you stick your left hand out for long enough, the side of any road, a guagua is just a bus, will come bring you. And then it goes into that, if you turn 7 times in the same spot, why would you do that? Why would you turn back? And then that's the final thing that I want to leave is me undercutting myself and saying, why are you doing this? Why are you dwelling on a memory? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to go back to? It's not there anymore. Yeah. And so I think that final part is me accepting that you can move on from, like, when you fix on a place or an idea or a past relationship, whatever it is, as a proxy for, some time where you feel you discovered yourself or you found or whatever, or some idealized place, that place doesn't really exist. That's just a place in your mind. So I think there's something about not resolving things that I want to keep, that I want to explore. And I think the reason why I'm slowing down and I'm not probably like highly articulate about it is because that's something I want to keep exploring. Just the lack of resolution. I think at the moment people are really wanting to cling on to some answer or
like
some
closure
hope,
or something.
All of these things. And also there's, because things are particularly unstable and uncertain at the moment, people kind of want to hark back to a time when everything was all right. And there isn't a time, everything is a bit blurry. And I think that's the nub. That's
You speak about time, and you more than anyone else, of a certain time where you've seen performers get on that stage and they walk off that stage and you're just like, what just happened? What did I just experience?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know whether the following thought was, can I do that? Or what does it take to do that? Or even when you get on that stage, potentially, how do I leave people feeling the same way of what I just experienced? Either it could be one of the three, it can be none at all. But in thinking about your relationship with performance, what is that like? And when I speak about performance, what are the key things that spring to you that you hold in mind, either of a certain point in the past, present, or going forward?
Again, it's that same thing of like an idealized past, because I got into performing poetry mostly through the slam scene, and the slam scene opened up so many like doors and spaces and opportunities for me in a way that you can't really that I sometimes idealize, and I try not to. And that was also connected to the audience, and it was connected to a sense of community as well. And I think you can't divorce, in a lot of performance spaces, you can't divorce what happens on the stage from the community around it. But yeah, there's been some, I think when you are in that form of competition, and I'm glad you acknowledge that sometimes it's okay to lose.
Oh. Where's the camera? Congratulations, Cat Francois and Team Cat. Well done for being the champs for Jordans. Big love, 2025. We shall carry on with this episode now.
I think adding the sense of competition, so the original spirit of the slam was to partly inject fun and joy. Maybe I'm saying joy because there's a bag that says bag some joy in it. But it was to stop the poetry scene being so stushy, you know. And what I then enjoyed about it, sometimes it went too far on the sort of jokey side at points. But often I would see my job when I went up on stage and wanted to win over an audience as being not just to pour out my, my linguistic dexterity, but to entertain, to go through a whole palette of emotions, not just anger, but also silliness and joy and all of that. And one thing, there's so many different things that I remember. One of them is because we were also talking about, I was part of the spoken word educators scheme. So I was one of 6 poets in the first year, like in a school in East London. Like we were figuring out how to teach poetry to young people. And in that cohort, you had people like Raymond Antrobus, Dina, Kat Brogan at the time. I remember we went to this slam in New York, and we both got to the final, and it just got intense. So she to the state that she did the splits while like in the middle of some line.
Serious?
Yeah. I still won that slam, by the way. But I'm like doing the splits on the stage while like right in a slam. Like you don't get that these days. But that was a moment where I thought, do you know what? When you are so when you are so like not in touch with your body, that's silly. What I mean is when you are so connected to the audience that you want to say like, see me, notice me. Some of that can be over the top when you lose a sense of words and sounds. But also taking up space on a stage, showing your presence, letting the words move through you, a whole person, and not just through your mouth and your throat.
Yeah.
I find that phenomenal. And I've never been like I'm not a dancer or anything, but being able to take a stage. And I've noticed when I've felt like a buzz of electricity from an audience, I'm all hands and arms, I'm expressive.
Yeah.
And I feel sometimes words can like move through you as a person. And that's what I love. There's also been, again, times, it's mostly in slams where I've seen that happen. But then there's been, a lot of key performance. I said words and then I had to say words and sounds as well, because then you have people, whether it's David J, whether it's Hannah Silver, whether it's, people who have remembered that when you put something on stage, when you're taking it off a page, you can then start to play with sounds and movements and how those sounds move through your mouth. If you can suck in words, if you can like throw sounds in different directions as well. I find that energizing.
And I guess those are the key things that I was just trying to pull out, especially in this season, is the idea that the craft is equally as important on the stage as one would work on the page. And everything applies, but in different forms, because there's a lot of considerations that you put in a performance in the same way that those considerations will be put on the page as well. You have brought a poem to share that we're both gonna watch in like a live watch to react to. Would you mind speaking briefly about the poet and the poem, and then we're gonna watch it together?
So, the poet Kareem Parkins-Brown is a legend. Like, I just love his mind and what he comes up with. And so the poem was just a random one that I chose. So
is that just purely off the back of just admiring just him as a poet, and that any of his work is just going to take you somewhere?
It's exactly that, and it's because I just like his pamphlet recently came out, and I've been reading it and thinking, yes, and certain things that chime, and again bringing playfulness, bringing religion, these are themes that I work with a lot. So I thought, let's see what, and so I didn't want to overwatch the video because we're gonna live react. And then, and
it's funny as well because Kareem also talks about play, a lot. But let's get into the poem. Feel like a YouTuber out here.
Did you pack your own bags? Thumbs are the guiltiest part of the body, guiltier than the brain, guiltier than the heart. Our thumbs have brains and our palms have hearts, so we vote with our thumbs, so we choose to hold hands. I'm okay with you knowing things about me, but I'm not okay with how much you know. I have no idea how much of me is actually online. That's as bad as not knowing who packed the bags for my flight. And cyber weaponry sounds like it could be something nice, like a flower that grows beside hyacinths, or the perfect name for the cat of an oligarch. The word data is an 8-bit bird stuttering across the sky. My kids will read about privacy like I read about dinosaurs, how they put the mock in democracy and saw the pry in privacy. And there are myths we tell ourselves to get us out of bed, that good things happen to good people, and practice makes perfect. And the latest myth is that you can have a public and a private life. In a world that's obsessed with watching itself, even our sky finds a mirror in our ocean, and whatever I've stored up in the cloud is sure to rain down on me. So maybe shamelessness is the only thing to make this information war fair. To defeat the propaganda, you take a propaganda. We see through politicians and they still can't be transparent. They all do the same tune, they all do the same dance. Blame each other in couples therapy, they remember how similar they are. There is oil in the skin, rare spices in the mind. We are theatres of war. We were putting on a show for one another, unaware of the investor in the audience. There are certain facts that are hard to hear, like I'd been laying traps for myself. The unconscious aspects of life make the best art. So my thumbs were afraid to call themselves artists until their work was stolen. Each like an expression of self, used to fund lies. I left a trail of cookies everywhere. That beast that was hunting me became my friend. Now we're both here, hungry.
It's the opening line and the closing line. Is it? The thing is, there is a performance style that I really, really do take to with Kareem's, and I don't know if you notice it or agree. It seems reflective enough that it's conversational.
Yeah.
This is not me telling. Actually, it can be me telling you something. But it's on terms for I'm just having a conversation just to let you know this is life as I know it.
Yeah.
This is life as I know it. And when I think about because you was talking about slam earlier, and then you was talking about the kind of funnier side of slam, kind of teasing its way through or just being prevalent. Because all like my template of slam to what I know of was the deaf poetry jams and bottom poetry and everything very much stateside in terms of a more intense, kind of like earnest, kind of like, this is what this is. This is the feeling. This is what's going on these sides. Whereas here, when I'm met with a different kind of energy, but the intensity is there. Because it's not to say that Kareem's poem wasn't intense.
It was very, but it's that kind of. So what I love about Kareem's performance style is there's a lot of like, in the body language, kind of throwaway, dismissive, and then you only realize it's blink and miss it intensity, you know?
If you blink, you're missing what he just said, that myth line, like everything. I'm just like, there's a reality to be like, it almost feels like at one point I was living fine in this bubble and then this bubble popped.
Yeah.
And this is my observation since that bubble has popped. And I can't say whether it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
But this is just what I'm in. Likelihood is this is what you're also going to be in.
Yeah.
And then we have to now reconcile with ourselves to be like, oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is it. So on your random pick, did you like go through like a few lines and you just like, oh yeah, this is what I'm sticking with, or what was it that drew you to it?
I think, well, one was the title. It's like, did you pack these bags yourself? Because I used that line in another poem of mine, and then it was the opening with the thumbs.
The thumbs
are the guiltiest part of me, I think. And again, like just opening with that striking thing, you don't see a lot of poems start with thumbs, right?
Yeah.
They should, more should. But just that, the brilliance of like the two-liner, and then feeling like it's moving away, and then like talking, you know, I left a trail of cookies in my wake, but then it does come back to the thumbs. But it's like it that's kind of why I chose it. One was because it was one of the more recent ones, and it was still like that were on, you know, a popular video website.
I love that. That is hilarious. Cool.
But then also because there was it demonstrated exactly what I love about his work with these like almost maxims. It always what's that word? Aphorisms almost, like with what it, like you could break off bits of
They're
that
quotables,
poem
essentially.
and but then when you put it together, it's this powerful thing that just resonates for a long time afterwards. So,
and there's just the last one on it. There's something similar to how your reading was, and the way you both of you dance with the work that you do, the musicality of how you are both dancing through this poem. Because he could have performed that in a different way.
Yeah.
Same way that you could have, but there's a rhythm. And I don't even know if this is just in a poet's head or what have you, where there's no music, you create the music in which rhythmically your work is performed. I do know there's some key poems that no matter wherever I perform it, whatever year, the musicality to that poem is still going to maintain the similar structures.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if it's like an intentional thing, and I don't know whether it's like a subconscious, this is just where I'm at. But yeah, just to kind of put that out there.
Yeah. But I think some of that comes from the wordplay and the punning in that. And I do respect a good pun. And I think some of it is like, oh, it could be cheesy, but it's not. Like, and And I think that brings forth the musicality. I'm trying to think of an example from that poem, which is why, oh man, I've drawn a blank, but there's a lot.
There's a lot working in there. Super quick, and then like super quick in thought, this part. A moment that you're proud of.
Oh, probably having a poem like projected onto the side of St. Paul's Cathedral.
That you can have that.
Yeah.
You can. What? That is mad.
That was 2019, before times. Yeah.
How did you celebrate that moment? Real quick, just like what happened after the fact when you saw that?
Do you know, I didn't realise how big a moment until another poet, Safia Kinshasa, she came to see it, and she said, "This is a big thing. You have to celebrate it." So actually, she made me realise that it was a big thing, like having a poet that I love and respect say, "Come, hold up, this is big."
Yeah.
And then also inviting my mum, because I don't invite her to things unless it's big.
Hold tight the fam, man. Hold tight the fam. I had a pleasure to kind of briefly meet them as well at last. The Hackney Empire show as well, which was awesome.
Yeah, and she's a lot.
She's awesome.
She's a lot. She's great.
What are you currently reading or listening to at the moment?
I'm reading a bunch of books. Padraig Otuma's latest collection, as well as Oluwaseun's. Strange Beach, yes. And what am I listening to?
I always picture your playlist is going to be like a vibe. But I don't know.
It's a lot.
But it's like, what are you currently listening to? You know?
It was because when Bad Bunny's like album came out, like everyone was going on about it. And so like I did have that on repeat.
That was a big, the intro to the first track on that, you know the vibe of where the vibe of how this is going.
So I'm just coming to the end of like having that on repeat for a while. So I'm back to just my random like favourites from the last year.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Keith, man. I don't think we've ever had this in-depth a conversation. We catch up when we catch up.
Yeah.
But to just do this, there's some stuff that I felt like I knew or understood, but you just took that a step deeper. And I hope supporters of your work, fans of your work, students and the like, they appreciate that as much as I'm appreciating it now. So I'm very thankful for this moment. And the reading and everything is just, man. Thank you so much.
Absolute joy and honour, and
Wicked. Done deal. That's it. Thank you for engaging and tuning in to this episode of Apples and Snakes, the podcast hosted by me, Yomi Shode. If you like what you're hearing, what you're seeing, please make sure you subscribe via the DSPs, Spotify, Apple. Make sure you tune in on us on YouTube and subscribe. Stay. We've got plenty more stories to go. We don't want to lose you just yet. Big love.